Welcome to Unhinged Magi! Oh man, things are changing. Things are improving.
They are.
Are they? Are they improving?
I think they are.
I think it might be.
You guys see the title on this video? It has, I don't know if you saw it above or below, depending on your viewer, but I think this topic actually gets the whole ecosystem better, maybe.
Maybe. It's got high potential.
It does.
I mean, think about it. We're going to be talking about eBay today, and this is just, we're talking about what it is. We're going to have follow-up videos later, so put questions down below, and you can't blame him because I gathered all the data. So if I screw this up, it's not the engineer's fault. It's the moron who actually did the research.
So what we're going to cover today is, like he said, just the content of what changed. We're not going to so much go into the topics of the impact it should have on the seller's market, buyer's market, like all these things.
Exactly.
There's too
ramifications everywhere. As we were discussing it, we were talked for a while, and it's actually a big thing. Okay, so basically eBay is adding authentication services to their website for any single card over $750 in purchase, right? So you have a buy it now at $750, or if the auction ends at $750, it goes immediately to this process, and you have no choice. There is nothing that you can do. If you sell one card, ungraded, unautographed, in any condition, then it has to go through this process. It's required. You will ship it to their authentication company. They will then either say that it's yes or no of what it is based on your description, and then if it matches that description, they'll send it on to the buyer. Okay? And you don't have a choice. You don't even get to choose. They're just automatically going to throw you into this.
So just to pause Dan for a second and make sure everyone's clear, there's three parties in this transaction. There's the seller, there's the buyer, and then this is known in the finance industry as an escrow service. The escrow service is in the middle, verifying that the item is real and that the cash is real.
CGC is the one that's going to be running it from what I've read. All right, so they are the authenticators.
The escrow service, effectively.
All right, they are the ones that will say yay or nay, and they are qualified. Their current fee for a standard one is $35, and I'm going to go over.
That's for grading the card.
Yes, for grading a card.
Yeah, so you send them a card and they send it back in a slab with a grade.
Right, and I couldn't find any service where they just do a review of the card. Beckett has a review system of the card, and it's about $8 or $10 from what I remember. But now, so this would be a much lower in price where it goes through their processing system.
Yeah, we are guessing that the price that CGC charges eBay to do this is probably like $8-10 a card.
Correct. That's what we're guessing. That's what we're estimating. Now remember, when you sell something at $750, there's a 12.5% fee, right?
On eBay.
Some of that's for the credit card processing, but that's a lot of value there, and I think that's why they're going for the free service. It says that it will be free for now, and they can change it at any time.
You know what I think probably happened is they probably looked at it and said the amount of time and money that even us, eBay, are wasting on these fraudulent transactions. If we just take, what's the math, like $90 or something out of a $750 transaction. So that's their floor of how much. Yeah, that's their gross on it, but then they got expenses. I bet eBay looked at this and said, if we just cough up $10 out of that $90 to have it go like verified, then you know what? Overall, we'll be happier, and the customer will be happier. Yeah. So yeah, there's margin in it, and I'm actually glad about this because honestly, this is dead honest. I felt a little angry about the amount of money that eBay was charging on their fees. I felt like it was too much because they weren't doing very much. Like I could just go sell on Facebook to well-known groups, not pay any fee, and be perfectly fine. So 12% on a $1,000 item felt like way too much. But if they're now actually going to provide some service and do some authentication, I feel like they're earning their money a bit.
Oh, yeah. And so it's going to take you longer to get your card. However, you're much safer. So the seller puts it up. Buyer buys it. The card goes out. Let's say it's a real card. The card goes to the authenticator, and then the authenticator says, "Yep, this is a real card," and he sends it on to the buyer.
Well, one thing, he probably holds on to it until he also authenticates that the cash is correct.
Well, yeah.
Usually
eBay already has the cash.
But that's an important step to mention. In the middle of escrow service, escrow verifies the item is legit, and they verify that the money is legit.
Well, eBay will hold on to the money until the authenticator authenticates it.
Then yes, yeah, it's okay. So both sides are getting authenticated.
Now, this goes to this buyer. The buyer then looks at it and says, "Hey, this is a fake card," and sends it back. Well, the authenticator's already authenticated it. They're going to look at this card, whatever card they send back, and say, "Nope, this is a fake card," and they're going to keep the money because it's not the card they sent.
Yeah, and that's actually really great for the person who sold. So there was a whole transaction. You guys remember the whole Lotus scenario that happened, where there was a Lotus that was sold, and then the guy went with like a well-known Magic personality and had the card reviewed, but he claimed it was the card. There's discussions of whether or not it is. Point is, the card being reviewed was a fake card, and so the seller lost his money. Well, that wouldn't happen in this situation, because if a real card was actually sent and it was verified as real, then it goes to the buyer, and then the buyer swaps it for a fake card, sends the fake back and says, "I decided not to do this transaction, I don't trust it." Then the person in the middle says, "I saw a real card go this way. Now I'm seeing a fake card come back." So the seller, he keeps his money. And the buyer, he's the one who takes the loss because he's the one that kept the card. So that's wonderful, actually. Yeah. This would have fixed that issue with that whole Lotus thing that happened.
Yep. And okay, so now let's say you buy a card on eBay, Black Lotus, 40 grand. They send the card over to the authenticator. The authenticator says it's fake. You get your money back immediately.
Yep. Yeah, so the buyer gets a huge benefit there. They were unable to sell him a fake card. So that's great.
Let's say the seller sends out the card, the authenticator authenticates it, and then it gets to the customer and the card got smashed by a semi-truck. And so he has a pile of junk in front of him. Well, he can send that back to the authenticator, and the authenticator is going to refund the money, and the seller still has his money. Because they're the ones responsible for the shipping of that card to the customer.
So, yeah, I mean, at first glance, you guys, this seems like a really good thing.
This is insane. They're taking so much risk, but they're removing a lot of problems.
You know, I actually...
Here's the thing. You can actually buy now from a person with no feedback. As long as you see that blue label, you got to have that blue thing on there. I don't have an example of that right now. But once they start putting those blue flags on there, it's supposed to be a blue flag that says it's going to be authenticated. You can trust a person with zero feedback.
Because it's going to be authenticated in the middle. So this is a huge benefit for people with low feedback beginning to sell stuff on eBay. This really bridges the gap of trust, actually.
All right. So now there are certain rules for these things.
Yeah, because we started talking about this back and forth because as Dan was describing it to me, I was not clear on a couple things. One question I was asking is hold on. Is it the auction is $750 or the item? So a perfect example is what if I sold a play set of Beta Stasis? Or maybe that's not a great example. How about Beta Mana Flare? Because a Beta Mana Flare that's just typical, loose, ungraded, maybe $400 or $500. That's each card is underneath that $750 amount, but all four of them together is over. So the auction would be $2,000, but the individual card would be $400 or $500 each. So then I was well, is this based on the auction price or is this based on a single card or what?
And the problem with the wording came when they said that it says single cards only is a card type. And so that sounds like it's pluralized. However, they say things that are not allowed are sets, lots, kits, decks, boxes, and packs of 2 or more cards.
Yeah, Dan and I were talking about this back and forth, but when he saw the section that says what's not allowed and included the word lots, I think what I just mentioned, 4 cards, 4 copies of Beta Mana Flare, I think could be considered a lot. And so those 4 going over the $750 amount would not qualify for this service.
Right. So you can't just put a pile of 100 cards in there, sell it for $1 a card, $750. Then it goes to this authentication thing. You can't do that. That's not going to be happening.
Now, that's also interesting, though, because if you had a card that's like $1,000 card and you didn't want this service, you could just throw in a pencil eraser and say...
It's a lot.
It's a lot. You know, I'm not selling a $1,000 Magic card. I'm selling a $1,000 Magic card and an eraser. And I think that would, as far as I can tell, that would make it outside this contract.
Exactly.
And then it would not be guaranteed. Now, as a buyer, I would not buy that auction.
Of course.
Because they purposely went around the rule.
Right. There's got to be a reason why they went around the rule.
Yeah.
Right. So, now, it doesn't cost you anything more. So there's no real reason for a person to sell in a $1,000 card and an eraser unless they were really trying to scam somebody.
Or the time was the thing. You don't want to spend the time.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you're buying expensive cards, go ahead and spend the time. Come on.
Exactly. And now you don't have to accept returns as a seller. So if the person gets the card and they're not going to get her, and you say, I'm not going to take any returns, that person's stuck with the card. That's what I also thought was interesting. Because sometimes you can force a return, but there's a certain 3-day window that they could possibly return it, but that's it.
And for anyone who's not experienced with like the history of eBay and this stuff, for a while they had people looking at these disputes and they would try to make a decision on was the buyer wrong or the seller wrong. And then eBay went through a long phase where they just basically said, you know what, screw the sellers. We're always going to favor the buyers. And I experienced that because I had people that I sent real cards to, and they found little tricky ways of just being like, oh, I didn't get the card. And I was like, you totally got the card. And they say, well, what's the tracking number? And if I didn't have the correct tracking number entered in the right way, whatever, like has to have a signature or whatever, then they would just claim they didn't get it. And then before I even had the chance to prove that they did, eBay would just refund them. And so like sellers, by default, were getting screwed on eBay for a long time. And now that seems like it's changing.
It's changing, but it's changing, and it's good for both, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Basic what we're seeing here. I don't know how much more they would charge for it, but it's pretty interesting.
Now, another thing to note about this is, and I was asking Dan this question, they don't currently offer this as an option. So like, let's say you're selling like a $400 Beta Mana Flare, and it's 1. And like you're looking at it like, I want to have them authenticate this and I will pay the $10 fee. It's not an option you can say yes to and make them do it.
That's correct. They do say that they will eventually, if this succeeds, they will eventually lower it to $250.
But see, I don't really like how they do that though, because like they're not giving you an option to buy this as a service. They're just lowering the mandate cutoff. Like, so I would rather they like allow me, like if I'm the seller and I'm like, hey, guess what? I will pay you guys the $15-$20 to do this authentication. Let me pay you for it. I wish they would actually.
Well, yeah, but do you really want to do that on top of the 12.5%?
There are times actually. A perfect example, if you're a low feedback seller, you've only got 3 feedback and you're trying to sell a beta force field and it's $600, then yeah, I'll cough up $10, for like an authentication service. Because otherwise what happens is if I go on eBay and I see a beta force field and I can go buy one from Card Kingdom for $650, or I can go buy it from a very well-known eBay guy for like $600, somewhere about there. This guy with 3 feedback, I'm only going to want to pay him like $400, honestly, or less, because that's a lot of risk.
Yep.
So yeah, I think there's margin there for people to want to pay this.
Well, that's good news. Let's keep that away from eBay then. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, yeah, I mean, if it's an option and you can select it or not, I actually see that as nothing but beneficial, personally.
Well, I think it should be able to be selected, and hopefully they'll make sure that it stays not $10 but cheap.
Yeah.
But yeah, this to me is the step in the right direction. It's a huge step. It's a huge gamble for them.
So you guys, this was just an information video on here's what's happening. Here's the details about it. We're going to come back to you. This is a deeper topic because this could impact the entire ecosystem of Magic cards and sellers and stuff online.
Not just that, Yu-Gi-Oh, basketball, baseball, right. I mean everything.
So tune back into Unhinged Magi very soon to get some of those takes where we talk about what we think it's going to do to the ecosystem.
But not if whales, they'll be fine.
Yeah, whales are fine. Okay, save the whales.
All right.
Okay, bye everybody.